My name is Kate Macra, and I'm the Executive Director of Cleveland Right to Life. I'm also the President-elect of the Right to Life Action Coalition of Ohio. That is a statewide pro-life organization. If you're not familiar with Cleveland Right to Life, I hope most of you are, but Cleveland Right to Life is one of the largest, if not the largest, pro-life organizations in the state of Ohio, and we've been around since about 1975. Our mission is to promote and defend the right to life and the dignity of all innocent human beings from conception until natural death. And we defend that right to life with every fiber of our being. We represent pro-life citizens, not just from Cleveland, even though our name is Cleveland, but we represent pro-life citizens from all over the region. So including Lake County, Ashtabula County, Summit County, where I live, Starr County, all surrounding counties. So we have 8 counties in Northeast Ohio that we represent. We believe in building a culture of life. And how do we do that? Well, we have a simple acronym that we use. It's PAVE, P-A-V-E, and that stands for prayer, action, voting, and education. And of course, the first one and the most important one is prayer, because we cannot do any of this without the help of the Almighty. And so, of course, I come from this as a pro-life activist. And I know that many of you were as anguished as we were when we saw what happened here in our beloved state of Ohio last year when Issue 1 passed. And we prayed and we worked as hard as we could and we gave it everything we had, but still the Lord had other plans. And there were a lot of people who said, well, how could, we prayed and prayed and prayed, how could God allow this to happen? Well, it's God's will, yes. But there was a lot of things that were left up to us. A lot of good church-going people who maybe did not understand what happened with Issue 1. They voted yes on Issue 1. They voted to enshrine abortion into our state constitution. Now that's something that they're going to have to answer for later. But the bottom line is now we have to deal with the consequences. And as a result, sadly in the state of Ohio now, many innocent babies will die because abortion is now a constitutional right in the state of Ohio. And a lot of the protections that have been put in place, for example, informed consent and the 24-hour waiting period, those were just recently put on hold by Franklin County judges and Hamilton County judges. They said, okay, that interferes with the constitutional right of a woman to have an abortion, so we think that a woman shouldn't have to wait 24 hours before she has an abortion. So all of these safeguards that were put in place, that have been in place for years, are now falling by the wayside because of what happened last year. That, again, prayer, action, voting, and education. We're still active, and that brings us to voting. We still must vote. But before we vote, we must do the fourth part, which is educate. Not only ourselves, but our friends and our neighbors, our colleagues, our relatives, because I'm sure the fact that you folks are here today shows that you are educated and you're interested, you're engaged, but sadly there's a lot of people who aren't. And it is incumbent upon us to talk to our friends and our neighbors about these issues. And I know sometimes it's very uncomfortable, especially when you bring up the topic of abortion. And I think that we have seen that recently in a lot of political discussions. There are a lot of politicians that like to run away from the issue of abortion. And I'm here to say that first and foremost, it's important that pro-lifers stand firm. We must be strong. We shouldn't be ashamed of the fact that we want to protect life. And we always have to vote for the most pro-life candidate there is. So when you're looking at the candidates, you have to look at the two options or however many options there are, and you look at their stance. Where do they stand on the issues of life? Now, are they always going to be perfect? No, they're not. But you look at the one whose values most align with yours, and you have to vote for that one, because chances are the other person, who shall not be named here, is going to want to allow abortion up until birth. Painful, late-term abortion up until birth, through all 9 months of pregnancy, for any reason whatsoever. And that is simply not acceptable, folks. We cannot let that happen in the United States of America. So we cannot just throw up our hands and say, well, the voters voted last year, so there's nothing we can do, because there are things that we can do. We have to still continue to work to change hearts and minds. And there's an old saying, and I love to use it because it's so true, that politics is downstream of culture. And what that means is that obviously we can't expect our politicians to do what we want if the culture hasn't changed. So if the culture hasn't been in a pro-life mindset, we can't expect our politicians to support that. So it's up to us to kind of regroup and work on changing hearts and minds. And you don't have to be the executive director of Cleveland Right to Life like me to do it. You can just be, again, talking to your sister and brother-in-law at Thanksgiving. It's little things like that. You know, we've spent 50 years since Roe v. Wade dehumanizing the unborn child. And it's taken 50 years to do that. So of course, we're not going to be able to undo all of that overnight. It's going to take years. But there are a lot of positive signs out there, and there are a lot of young people out there who understand. You know, I see it at the March for Life. I see a lot of young people who are engaged. There is a lot of hope out there. So please do not become discouraged. And I know you folks are people of faith. And I would just ask you to remember that God is going to hold us accountable for how we vote. And to anyone who says, oh, abortion is not a personal issue, you know, I'm personally against it. I know you've heard that before, right? I'm personally against abortion, but I can't tell somebody else how to vote. Well, absolutely you can. Abortion is a moral issue. It's a life and death issue. It is a human rights issue. And if you want to make a comparison to the issue of slavery back in the 1860s, think about what happened back then. That they were making the same argument. Well, you know, it's a states' rights issue. And, you know, I personally, you know, don't own slaves, but I can't tell the people in the South what to do. But eventually, over years, that mindset changed, and it didn't happen overnight. With a lot of work, and unfortunately, 600,000 plus lives were lost because of it. But a lot of brave people put their lives on the line, and eventually that changed. And I do believe that we will see an end to abortion in our lifetime, but we can't do it alone, and it's going to take every one of us to kind of chip in and do our part. So in the meantime, what can we do? Well, first of all, I would ask you to support your local pregnancy center. There's usually several pregnancy support centers in your neighborhood. Seems like everybody knows where their local abortion clinic is, but not a lot of people know where their pregnancy help center is. So that's my first ask for you, is to find out where your pregnancy center is and find out how you can help them. Because most of the time they're run on pretty low budget. They have a lot of volunteers, but they could use a lot of help. So support them, because they help women who are in crisis pregnancy situations. And they are usually organizations that are based on faith, and they provide all of their services for free, and they could use your help. Secondly, of course, you can support pro-life organizations like Cleveland Right to Life, because we are out there on the front lines every day, fighting the fight, trying to influence our legislators down in Columbus, getting the word out, trying to educate folks, and we do appreciate your support. So if you're interested, I have my cards. You can always go to clevelandrighttolife.org to find out more, and I will be happy to talk to you about that. And finally, please support our pro-life legislators, because there are some really good ones down there in Columbus and in Washington. Maybe not as many, but there are. They really do need your support, because a lot of times they are under an incredible amount of pressure to buckle and to just vote. You know, those pro-lifers, you don't need them, but they do need us. And a lot of times they need your support, and all it takes sometimes is just to pick up the phone or to send an email of support and to say, hey, we really appreciate what you're doing. Thank you for standing up for life. And I've talked to many of these legislators, and it really does mean a lot, and it goes a long way for them. So those are some things that you can do right now. And I do want to close with something that I read from a pastor, and he was talking about how it's our obligation to vote and to discern who to vote for in the upcoming election. And he said that we know that Satan is the author of confusion. He's also the deceiver of the brethren. And at the end of the day, the Democratic Party offers nothing to America. But this doesn't change the fact that so many people have been duped and hoodwinked. And this is why, now more than ever, the church must use your voice and speak up. Church leaders can no longer be on the fence, playing these soft, weak games of not taking a political stance under the false notion that the Bible is not political is not true, because the Bible is political. So the other thing you can do is to encourage your priest or pastor to stand up and get political, because it is the right thing to do. And as I said, when we stand before the Lord, we're going to be held accountable for how we voted. And do you really want to say, well, you know, I didn't think it was my business to tell a woman what to do with her body, so I voted for the pro-abortion candidate. No, I certainly don't want to have to say that. So I thank you for your time, and God bless you all. And let's go out there and support life. Thank you.